Hello and welcome to Model Dad's Tarkur Ghar project. Today I'm just going to be doing a really informal talk through how I use Woodland Scenics leopard spotting technique for painting my rocks for this project. Unlike Woodland Scenics where they use their liquid pigments, I'm going to be using the same technique but with cheaper alternatives. I'm going to be using Galleria raw umber, raw sienna opaque and yellow ochre paint. You can see I've lined them up down the bottom there. And then to accentuate in black I'm going to be using Vallejo black primer. And I really quite like the very cheap Anita's all-purpose acrylic grey paint, which gives you a really nice stony effect. And all I'm doing here, as you can see, is I'm working following the video by diluting my secondary colours. In this case I'm going to be using raw sienna, yellow ochre and the raw umber. I'm going to be using 3 secondary colours, diluting them at a ratio of 1 blob to 16 blobs of water. With the Anita's acrylic in grey, I'm going to be diluting that at the same ratio and then producing another pot at a 1:32 ratio because that's going to be my dominant colour. And then I'm finally going to be doing the same for black primer. So once I've got all that set up, you can see that unlike the leopard spotting method, what I've found that works better, I have tried what they've suggested, is to have a plan about how you want to lay the colours in. And all I'm doing here is I'm taking my yellow ochre and I'm washing it into all the grooves on the rocks with the intention of trying to keep it so that you've got like a grey white transition highlight going on the top upper surfaces, but then on the inner part of the rocks where it's worn away you've got this kind of orangey effect that you see in Afghanistan. With this particular piece, what I'm going to be doing is working on it so that it's really orange and really yellow. I've done other pieces where I've been quite sparing with this, so yeah, you can see me just putting the paint on there. The next step will really be to take that yellow, and once I've sort of washed it all over the mould, I'll also get the raw sienna, which is more orangey, and then wash that into the inner parts of those areas with yellow, and you'll see me doing that in a minute. I'm really doing it very liberally. I'm using a large, I think it's a Citadel tank brush, I don't know whether they still do those, and it's a very dilute mix. And what I'm finding as I'm washing it over the rocks is that where I've coated them in PVA, sometimes you get a good coverage, sometimes you don't. You just wash it in, it's no big deal. And you can see I'm just using a bit of extra water as and when required. It doesn't matter that it looks a bit messy. All I would say is that you don't want to leave any hard edged blobs on your work, because then it just looks slightly unnatural. But to be honest, there's going to be so many rocks on the table that you're not worried. Here you can see that what I'm doing is I'm just putting the orange now right in the deepest recesses of the mould to give it a bit of colour contrast. And really at that stage, according to Woodland Scenics, you stop, but really I'm just going to adapt that technique. And what you can see I'm doing now is then washing over the raw umber just to sort of blend it into the yellows and oranges, because what I want is a darker browny orangey rock. If you didn't want that, if you wanted the grey on there, you can see what I'm doing now is just applying the grey. And because this is the dominant colour, this is the mix of all ratio at 1:32, so 1 drop of pigment to 32 water. And you can see all I've done with that is I've let it dry and then I'm just washing the colours over. You can mix and match as well. What I've done in the past is to wait for the colours are very fluid and they're not dried, and so you get a nice blended effect. What I've found with this is that if you only do one covering of the dominant colour with this acrylic, what you end up with is a less grey effect. So I put 2 coats on, and then once that's done, once it's dried properly, I'm then sealing in a very liberal coat of watered down PVA. Woodland Scenics say to use their scenic glue, but I've found that it's better to just mix up your own PVA. Then what I'm doing here is just taking my diluted 1:16 ratio of black primer, washing it in to accentuate all the grooves, and you can see that it's pooling in a lot of places. Just make sure you cover all the bases with this, that you get it everywhere, because sometimes when you're working with it you obviously miss some of the underhanging bits and bobs. This will obviously darken down the grey and just make sure it doesn't pool too much. You can see all I'm doing there is just going around. I'm working off a bit of cardboard to soak up any excess. I'm concentrating on the upper surfaces but ensuring that I keep some white. And if you work, I guess, with reference to their Woodland Scenics video, you'll be fine, really. There we go. I'm just making sure I've covered all the bottom bits. Don't worry about it getting mucky, but you do need something to soak it all up. There you go, just dripping it all in. It'll pool around the base. I quite like that darker effect. And what I have noticed is when I'm doing this is that I've put the rock that way up, but you can, with this piece, particular mould, you can either have it this way or another way with a ledge. And obviously, it depends. If you want to have the ledge, you'd wash the black from the top down, but you can see all you're getting is accentuated effects. But depending upon how you want the finished piece to look, you can see it's very, very orange in contrast to other pieces. But I kind of figure once it's on the board, it's no big deal really. It'll blend in nicely. And it does sort of reflect that sort of terrain that you see in all parts of Afghanistan, well, in southern regions and southeastern regions. So there you go, washed it all on. It's not complicated. You don't have to be a genius. You just whack it all on. There you go. I'm just making sure it's not pooling too much in the black, and I'm just making sure I got all the nooks and crannies. You can see an air bubble just popped there. You just don't want to make sure you don't want to leave any of them on there. No hard lines really, if you can help it. And then really all you're going to do is let that dry properly. I put mine out in the sun because we've got some nice weather here at the minute. And then it's another very, very liberal dose of PVA, or watered down PVA. You can see I'm fussing here. Oh God, I still keep going. This is ridiculous. Fuss, fuss, fuss. There's no need really. Okay, there you go. There's the finished product. Really, another big, as I say, liberal coat. What I've found with this is that if you do soak it very liberally with PVA, you end up with quite a robust piece. Really, I mean, I don't see why people are sort of saying that plaster of Paris isn't robust. If you look after your scenery, you wrap it up in a bubble wrap, it's fine, and you'll see it dries clear. And there you go. You've got the final thing. I've laid it out on the board. Lots of different pieces. You can see the different colours there. Some cheeky Taliban coming up behind my marine, but you can see it fits in nicely. So, yep. Thanks for watching. That's everything. Bye.